The stars looked cold through the window of the spaceship. Captain Lee Taiho stood in the command center watching the dark space ahead. His uniform was old and patched in many places. The ship Seong-san had been flying for 3 months now, carrying the last survivors from another dead world. Behind him, the crew worked quietly at their stations. They had learned not to make loud sounds. Loud sounds reminded everyone of the screaming that came from the colonies before they died. The screaming that always stopped suddenly when the alien weapons finished their work. Dr. Park Minji sat at her science station, looking at data from the destroyed colonies. She had studied the remains for 2 years now. Every colony showed the same thing, complete destruction with strange energy patterns. The weapons went through human shields like they were made of paper. No human technology could stop them. "Dr. Park?" Captain Lee called softly. "What do your readings show?" Park looked up from her screen. Her face was tired. She had not slept well in months. None of them had. "The same energy patterns, Captain. Whatever these aliens use, it works differently than our science says it should. The energy seems to bend around normal matter and hit living things directly." At another station, Kim Ji-won listened to their talk. She was one of only 17 people who escaped when Kepler 442 colony died. 180,000 people had lived there. Now there were 17. She remembered the day clearly. The sky had turned red, then white, then black. When she woke up, everything was gone. The ship's computer made a soft sound. Lieutenant Han Soo-young looked at her navigation screen and went pale. "Captain, I'm picking up those energy patterns again, the same ones from the colony attacks." Everyone in the command center stopped what they were doing. Captain Lee walked to the main screen. "How far away?" 2 light years and closing. "They're moving faster than anything we've seen before." Han's voice shook a little. "Sir, they're not just following us, they know exactly where we are." Captain Lee looked at the screen showing their current position. They were in empty space between star systems. No colonies here, no human settlements. Nothing but the Seong-san and its 3,000 survivors from 5 different destroyed worlds. "How long do we have?" he asked. "At their current speed, maybe 6 hours." The captain closed his eyes for a moment. He had been making the same choice for months now. Run or fight. Every time running was the only answer that kept people alive, but now he was tired of running. "Lieutenant Han, plot a course for Earth." The command center went quiet. Han stared at her captain. "Sir, Earth hasn't responded to any communications in 53 years. We don't even know if anyone is still alive there." "I know," Captain Lee said, "but it's better than dying out here in empty space." Dr. Park stood up from her station. "Captain, Earth went silent just before these attacks started. What if the same thing happened to our home world? What if we're flying toward another dead planet?" The captain looked around at his crew. They were all young. Most had never seen Earth. They had been born on colonies that no longer existed. "Maybe Earth is dead," he said. "But if these aliens are hunting every human settlement, then running deeper into space won't save us. At least on Earth, we might find answers." Kim Ji-won spoke for the first time in days. "What if Earth isn't dead? What if they went quiet for a reason?" Everyone looked at her. She was the only civilian on the command crew, but her words carried weight. She had seen an entire world die. If anyone understood what they were facing, it was her. "What do you mean?" Captain Lee asked. "The timing," she said slowly. "Earth stopped talking to the colonies just before the attack started. What if they knew something was coming? What if they prepared?" Dr. Park shook her head. "Prepared how?" "Every colony had defenses. Every colony had warnings. It didn't matter. These aliens have technology we can't understand." "But Earth is different," Kim Ji-won continued. "It's where humans came from. It has 10 billion people and the best scientists and the strongest military. If anyone could find a way to fight back, it would be Earth." Lieutenant Han was already working on the navigation computer. "Course plotted for Earth, Captain. It will take us through 3 empty systems. Total travel time is 47 days. "What about the aliens following us?" Dr. Park asked. Captain Lee smiled for the first time in weeks. If they want to follow us to Earth, let them. Maybe it's time humanity stopped running. The Seong-san changed direction, its engines pushing the ship toward humanity's birth world. Behind them, the alien hunters adjusted their course to follow. In the depths of space, the chase continued. Days passed slowly. The refugees on the ship tried to live normal lives, but everyone knew they were being hunted. Children played quietly in the recreation areas. Adults worked at their jobs and tried not to think about the energy readings that grew stronger each day. Captain Lee walked through the ship every morning. He visited the families in their small living quarters. He talked to the engineers keeping the ship running. He listened to the teachers trying to give children hope for a future. Each day he saw the same thing in their eyes: fear mixed with trust. They believed he would keep them safe. Dr. Park worked day and night on the alien energy patterns. She had samples from 12 destroyed colonies now. The data showed impossible things. The alien weapons seemed to know the difference between human technology and human bodies. They destroyed buildings and ships, but killed people with different, more precise energy. It's like they're designed specifically to hunt humans, she told Captain Lee one evening. Not just any living things, humans. Why would aliens make weapons just for humans? He asked. I don't know, but look at this data. She showed him her computer screen. The energy patterns change depending on human population size. Small settlements get different weapons than large colonies. It's like they study each target and choose the exact weapon needed. Captain Lee studied the information. How many colonies have they destroyed? All of them, Dr. Park said quietly. Every human settlement outside the solar system, 43 colonies across 12 star systems, over 200 million people. The captain sat down heavily. 200 million people, gone. And now, the survivors were flying toward Earth with the hunters following behind them. Sir, Lieutenant Han called from the doorway. You need to see this. They followed her to the command center. On the main screen was a long-range scan of the solar system. Earth looked small and blue, just like in the old pictures. But something was wrong. The moon, Han said, pointing at the screen. Look at its position. Dr. Park studied the readings. It's moved. Not much, but it's definitely not where it should be. Moons don't just move, Captain Lee said. No, sir, they don't. Not unless someone moves them. Kim Ji-won joined them at the screen. What else is different? Han brought up more scans. Several asteroids in the belt have new positions. Jupiter's orbit is slightly changed. Small changes, but they're there. Someone's been rebuilding the solar system, Dr. Park whispered. On the screen, Earth turned slowly in space. No radio signals came from the planet. No ships moved between the worlds. No signs of the busy civilization that had sent humans to the stars. But the moved moon and shifted asteroids told a different story. How long until we reach Earth? Captain, Lee asked. 18 days, sir. And the aliens following us? They'll arrive about 6 hours after we do. Captain Lee nodded. Send a message to everyone on the ship. Tell them we're almost home. Deep in space, the alien hunters detected the human ship's change in direction. They had been chasing humans across the galaxy for 5 years now. Every colony destroyed brought them closer to their goal, the complete removal of the human threat from the universe. The hunt was almost over. Soon they would reach the humans' birth world and finish what they had started. They did not know that Earth had been waiting for them. 18 days later, the Seong-san entered the solar system. Captain, Lee stood in the command center, looking at humanity's first home. It looked peaceful and blue, turning slowly in the light of the sun. But no voices answered their calls for communication. Take us into Earth orbit, he ordered, slowly. As they approached, more strange things became visible. Satellites in perfect formation around the planet. Space stations that hadn't been there 50 years ago. And on the moon's surface, structures that looked like they grew from the rock itself. Captain, Dr. Park said, her voice full of wonder, I'm detecting life signs on Earth. Lots of them. But they're different. Different how? They're human, but the energy patterns are unlike anything I've seen before. It's like they're connected to something. All of them. On the surface of Earth, in deep underground cities that spanned continents, humanity waited. They had known the hunters were coming. They had been preparing for this moment for 50 years. Colonel Bei Hunwoo stood in the command center buried 3 miles below what used to be Seoul. Around him, screens showed the Seongsan approaching Earth orbit. Soon the alien hunters would arrive. The final test was about to begin. "Are we ready?" he asked. "We've been ready for decades," came the reply from Dr. Yu Sunmi. "The question is whether the universe is ready for what we've become." In orbit around Earth, Captain Lee waited for contact with his homeworld. He did not know that humanity had evolved beyond his recognition. He did not know that the hunt was about to end. The command ship Death of Worlds moved through space like a dark mountain. Inside its metal halls, Vorthak Primecast studied the reports from his hunting fleets. 43 human colonies destroyed. 200 million of the dangerous species eliminated. Only one target remained. Vorthak's scales were dark green with age and covered in scars from 1,000 battles. He had lived for 300 years, and all of those years had been spent protecting the galaxy from species that grew too dangerous. The humans were the worst threat he had ever seen. "Primecast," said Second Cast Krenth, entering the command chamber. "The last human ship has reached their birth world. Our fleet will arrive in 6 hours. Vorthak turned his large head to look at his subordinate. Krenth was young, only 50 years old. He had not lived through the Great War like Vorthak had. He did not understand what happened when a species developed the catalyst mutation. "Are all 7 species ready for the final attack?" Vorthak asked. "Yes, Primecast. The Melody have prepared their sound weapons. The Crystalline bring their matter-breaking tools. The gas swimmers have built devices that destroy at the molecular level. All species of the hegemony are ready to eliminate the human threat forever." Vorthak walked to a large window that looked out at space. Behind his ship, a fleet of 300 vessels followed. Each ship represented a different alien species that had joined the hegemony's mission. They all understood the danger that fast-evolving species posed to the galaxy. "Tell me about the humans again," Vorthak said to Krenth. "What makes them so dangerous?" Krenth activated a holographic display. Pictures of humans appeared in the air between them. Men and women from different colonies, working, building, exploring new worlds. "They evolved too quickly," Krenth said. "In just 2,000 years, they went from using simple tools to traveling between stars. Their population grows faster than any species in our records. They adapt to new environments in just a few generations." "And?" Vorthak prompted. "They carry the genetic markers," Krenth said quietly. "The same patterns we found in the predecessor, ruins. The humans have the same DNA structure that created the Great War." Vorthak closed his eyes and remembered. 3 million years ago, the galaxy had been a different place. The predecessors had been the dominant species, tall, graceful beings who could change their bodies at will. At first, they had been helpful. They shared technology and knowledge with younger species like the Vorthak. But the predecessors had a flaw in their genetics, the catalyst mutation. It made them evolve not over millions of years, but over decades. Soon they could survive in any environment. They could eat any food. They could breathe any atmosphere. They became living creatures that were more like energy than matter. The predecessors tried to help other species develop the same abilities. But when a species evolved too quickly, terrible things happened. Planets died. Stars went out. Reality itself began to break down in some regions of space. The Great War lasted for 1,000 years. Species across the galaxy fought to stop the predecessors before they destroyed everything. In the end, the predecessors simply vanished. Some said they transcended physical reality entirely. Others believed they were destroyed. But they left behind worlds full of ruins and the genetic codes that had made them so dangerous. "The humans show the same patterns," Vorthak said. "Fast evolution, rapid population growth, the ability to adapt to any environment, and now their colonies are developing impossible technologies." Krenth nodded. The colony on Kepler 442 had learned to grow plants that could survive in pure methane. The settlement on Proxima had built computers using living brain tissue. Each colony was developing abilities that our science says are impossible. Because they were beginning the catalyst mutation, Vorthak said. Another 50 years, and they would have become like the predecessors. Another 100 years, and they might have started changing other species, just like before. The holographic display showed pictures of destroyed human colonies, burned cities, empty spaceports, silent farms. Each image represented millions of lives ended to prevent a greater catastrophe. Primecast, Krenth said carefully. Sometimes I wonder if we are doing the right thing. The humans I observed were not cruel. They cared for their families. They helped each other. They created beautiful art and music. They seemed like good people. Vorthak's large eyes fixed on his subordinate. The predecessors were also good people, Second Cast. They wanted to help everyone. They thought their gifts would make the galaxy a better place. Instead, they almost destroyed everything that existed. But what if the humans are different? Krenth asked. What if they could control the mutation? What if they could evolve safely? There is no safe evolution beyond natural limits, Vorthak said firmly. The universe has rules. Species that break those rules create chaos. We have seen it before. We will not allow it to happen again. The communication system activated, and voices from the other hegemony ships filled the command chamber. Admiral Thex of the Crystalline spoke first, her voice like breaking glass. Primecast Vorthak, our deep space scanners show unusual energy patterns around the human birth world. The planet appears to be heavily defended. General Bloompetal of the Plant Kingdom added his deep, slow voice. My ships detect artificial structures throughout their solar system. The humans have been busy during their 50 years of silence. Captain Whistlesong of the Melody contributed his musical tones. The orbital patterns of their planets have been changed. Someone has been moving celestial bodies. This requires enormous energy and very advanced technology. Vorthak listened to the reports from all 7 allied species. Each one confirmed the same thing. Earth was not the defenseless world they had expected to find. It does not matter, he told the fleet. Whatever defenses they have built, we have the combined technology of 7 species and 300 ships. No single world can stand against the full might of the hegemony. But privately, Vorthak felt worried. The humans had been silent for 50 years, long enough to complete several generations of the catalyst mutation, long enough to develop abilities that the hegemony might not understand. Second Cast, he said to Krenth, prepare the void weapon. Krenth's scales turned pale. The void weapon was the hegemony's ultimate tool, used only twice in their long history. It could destroy not just planets or solar systems, but the very structure of space itself in a small region. Nothing could survive it because it made existence impossible in the targeted area. Primecast. The void weapon has never been used near an inhabited system. The gravitational effects could damage neighboring star systems. Billions of innocent lives could be affected. Better than allowing another great war, Vorthak said. If the humans have completed the catalyst mutation, conventional weapons may not work against them. We must be prepared to use any tool necessary to protect the galaxy. The fleet continued toward Earth. Inside each ship, alien warriors prepared for battle. They had fought humans before and found them to be brave but limited by their biology. The aliens had superior technology, longer lifespans, and genetic modifications that made them perfect soldiers. But on Earth, something waited that none of them understood. The humans had indeed evolved during their 50 years of silence. They had discovered what the predecessors had learned millions of years ago, that consciousness could exist beyond the limits of flesh and blood. The difference was that humans had learned from the predecessors' mistakes. They had not tried to transcend physical reality entirely. Instead, they had learned to work with it, to become partners with the universe itself rather than trying to dominate it. Vorthak studied the approaching blue world on his screens. It looked peaceful and beautiful, just like all the human colonies had looked before the attacks began. But he could feel something different about this planet. The energy patterns were wrong. The way light bent around certain areas suggested technology that operated on principles the hegemony had never encountered. All ships, prepare for battle, he ordered. Target all population centers for immediate destruction. Use maximum firepower. Do not give the humans time to respond. 300 ships armed with the most destructive weapons in the galaxy, prepared to eliminate humanity's birth world. The aliens believed they were preventing another galactic war. They thought they were protecting civilization itself. They did not know that humanity had evolved beyond their understanding. They did not know that the Earth itself had become something new, a fusion of human consciousness and cosmic forces that would challenge everything the hegemony believed about, the nature of reality. The final hunt was about to begin, but this time the prey was ready. The Seongsan drifted in Earth's orbit like a lost child finding its way home. Captain Lee Taiho stood before the main viewing screen, watching the blue and green world turn slowly below them. It looked exactly like the pictures from the old databases, but something felt wrong. Still no response to our communications, reported Lieutenant Han Soo-young from her station. She had been sending messages to Earth for 6 hours now. Every frequency, every emergency channel, every diplomatic protocol. Nothing came back but silence. Dr. Park Minji looked up from her science console, her face pale with confusion. Captain, I'm detecting massive population centers on the surface, but they're all underground. Miles underground. It's like the entire human race moved into caves. Kim Ji-won pressed closer to the viewing screen. She had been born on Kepler 442 colony, but her parents had told her stories about Earth. Green forests and blue oceans and cities that reached toward the sky. Now she saw cities on the surface, but they looked empty. No lights in the windows, no vehicles moving on the streets, no people walking the sidewalks. What about the moon? Captain Lee asked. Any activity there? Han checked her long-range sensors. The structures we detected are definitely artificial, but I can't tell what they're for. They seem to be growing, actually growing like plants, but they're made of metal and crystal. Growing how fast? Dr. Park asked. According to the scans, they've expanded 12% since we arrived in orbit. That was 6 hours ago. Everyone in the command center went quiet. Technology didn't grow like living things, not unless someone had learned to merge biology with engineering in ways that human science had never attempted. Captain, came a voice from the ship's internal communication system. It was Chief Engineer Yoon Daewon calling from the engine room. You need to hear this. I've been monitoring our power system since we entered Earth orbit. Something is affecting our engines. What kind of something? Captain Lee asked. I'm not sure, sir. Our fusion reactors are running 12%, more efficiently than they should be. All our energy systems are performing above specifications. It's like the space around Earth is somehow helping our technology work better. Dr. Park's eyes went wide. Chief Yoon, are you saying that space itself is different here? That's exactly what I'm saying, Doctor. I've run every test I can think of. The fundamental constants of physics are the same, but something is optimizing how energy flows through our systems, and it's getting stronger the closer we get to Earth. Captain Lee walked to the communication station. This is Captain Lee Taiho of the colony ship Seongsan calling Earth Command. We are refugees from the destroyed outer colonies. We need immediate assistance. Please respond. The silence that followed was complete. No static, no interference, just perfect quiet that seemed to absorb their words without echo. Sir, Han said quietly, the alien fleet following us will arrive in 30 minutes. On Earth's surface, 3 miles beneath the city that had once been Seoul, Colonel Bae Hyunwoo stood in a command center that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Around him, holographic displays showed not just the approaching human refugees, but the alien fleet behind them and the quantum probability streams that connected all possible futures. They're trying to make contact, reported Dr. Yu Sun-mi, whose consciousness now extended through computer networks across the planet, while her physical body remained in the Seoul facility. Should we respond? Colonel Bae considered the question. 50 years ago, when Earth received the first reports of systematic colony destruction, humanity had faced an impossible choice. Fight with conventional weapons against clearly superior, alien technology, or try something that had never been attempted in the known history of the galaxy. They had chosen evolution. Not yet, he said. Let them see what we've become gradually. Full revelation might break their minds. Around him, the transformed humans who made up Earth's Defense Council worked at stations that responded to thought rather than touch. Private Nam Dongyuk, who had been born after the change, existed simultaneously in the command center and in 17 other locations around the solar system. His consciousness flowed through the modified space around Earth like water through rivers. The alien fleet is larger than our projections indicated, Nam reported, his voice coming from speakers while his physical body stood beside a quantum manipulation console. 300 ships representing 7 different species. They have weapons designed to destroy planets. Do they have the Void Weapon? Asked Dr. Lee Guyong, who had once been Earth's leading physicist and was now something that existed partially outside normal space-time. Yes. Detecting the characteristic energy patterns now. They're prepared to unmake this entire region of space if necessary. Colonel Bay nodded calmly. The Void Weapon had been anticipated. In fact, its presence confirmed that the aliens understood exactly what humanity might become if allowed to complete their evolution. The weapon could destroy not just matter and energy, but the underlying structure of reality itself. Are our defenses ready? He asked. All quantum barriers are in place, Dr. Yu responded. The solar system has been prepared. Every asteroid, every comet, every particle of dust has been integrated into the network. If they attack, they'll be fighting the laws of physics themselves. Aboard the Seongsan, Kim Ji-won watched Earth through the viewing screen and felt something she couldn't explain. The planet looked peaceful, but her instincts told her that vast intelligence was looking back at her. Not the intelligence of computers or artificial minds, but something that was unmistakably human, and yet far beyond anything she had ever encountered. "Captain," she said, "what if they can't respond to our communications because they've changed too much? What if they're still human but in ways we don't understand anymore?" Dr. Park looked at her readings again. "The life signs I'm detecting are definitely human genetic patterns, but the energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. It's like they're connected to something vast. All of them." "Connected how?" Captain Lee asked. "I don't know. The energy patterns suggest they're linked not just to each other, but to the planet itself, maybe to the entire solar system. I've never seen anything like it." Lieutenant Han's sensor console suddenly came alive with new data. "Captain, multiple contacts approaching from Earth. They're not using any propulsion system I can identify." On the screen, small objects rose from Earth's surface. They moved without rocket exhaust or any visible means of acceleration. They approached the Seongsan in perfect formation, their hulls seeming to shift and flow like living metal. "They're beautiful," Kim Ji-won whispered. The objects were ships, but unlike any vessels in human databases, they looked grown rather than built, with surfaces that reflected light in impossible ways and geometries that seemed to fold space around themselves. "Incoming transmission," Han reported. The main screen flickered and changed. Instead of showing space, it now displayed a man in what looked like a military uniform. But something was wrong with the image. He appeared solid and real, but occasionally Kim Ji-won could see through him to the walls behind. "Welcome home," said the man on the screen. His voice was Captain Oh Jae-hyun, though no one aboard the Seongsan recognized him. "I know you have many questions. We will answer them as best we can, but first you need to understand what you're about to witness." Captain Lee stepped forward. "This is Captain Lee Tae-ho. Who am I speaking with? Are you from Earth Command?" "I am Captain Oh Jae-hyun of Earth Defense. I was born in Busan 70 years ago and died in the service of humanity 30 years ago. I continue to serve in ways that would have been impossible before the change." Dr. Park stared at the screen. "That's impossible. You can't be dead and still talking to us," Captain O smiled. "Death is different now, Doctor. Consciousness is more flexible than we once believed, but we don't have time for philosophy. The alien fleet will arrive in 12 minutes, and they have weapons that can unmake entire solar systems." "Then we need to run," Captain Lee said. "Get everyone away from Earth before they attack." "No," Captain O said gently. "Running is over. Humanity spent 50 years preparing for this moment. Today we show the galaxy that evolution doesn't have to mean destruction. Today we prove that consciousness can grow beyond its limits without losing what makes it human. The screen flickered and changed to show Earth from orbit. But now the planet looked different. Streams of energy connected it to the moon, to the asteroids, to every piece of matter in the solar system. The entire region of space around Earth glowed with patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. "What have you done?" Kim Ji-won asked, in wonder. "We became what the predecessors were afraid to become," Captain O said. "We learned to work with reality instead of trying to transcend it. We evolved not beyond humanity, but into the fullest expression of what humanity could be." Suddenly, alarm signals filled the Seongsan's bridge. Lieutenant Han's face went white as she read her sensors. "Captain, the alien fleet just dropped out of hyperspace. They're beginning their attack run." On the screen, Captain O's expression didn't change. "Please observe carefully," he said. "You're about to see the end of the age of hunting and the beginning of something new." In space around Earth, 300 alien warships activated weapons designed to kill planets. Energy beams that could. Vorthak Primecast stared at his weapon displays in disbelief. Every indicator showed that his fleet's devastating arsenal was functioning perfectly. Energy output was at maximum levels. Targeting systems had locked onto population centers across Earth's surface. The gravitational disruptors were armed and ready to tear the planet apart. But nothing was happening. "Report!" he roared at his weapons officer. "Primecast, all weapons are firing as ordered. Energy is being released, but the beams are changing direction. They curve away from the planet before impact." Second Cast Krenth studied his own displays with growing confusion. "Sir, my sensors show our gravitational bombs are working, but in reverse. Instead of collapsing matter, they're somehow strengthening the molecular bonds of everything they touch." Across the fleet, similar reports came from all 7 alien species. The Melody's sound weapons were producing beautiful music instead of destructive frequencies. The crystalline's matter-disrupting rays were causing Earth's surface to sparkle, like precious gems. The gas swimmer's molecular destroyers were cleaning the planet's atmosphere and making it more breathable. "This is impossible," Vorthak said through clenched teeth. "Physics doesn't work this way. Weapons don't choose their own targets." On his main screen, Earth continued to turn peacefully in space. The blue oceans and green continents looked exactly the same as when the attack had begun. No damage, no fires. No signs that the most powerful fleet in the galaxy had been trying to destroy it for the past 10 minutes. "Primecast," came a voice over the fleet communication system. It was Admiral Thex of the Crystalline. "My science teams report that our weapons are functioning normally until the moment they should impact the target. Something is interfering with them at the quantum level." General Bloompetal of the Plant Kingdom added his slow, deep voice to the conversation. "My ships detect massive consciousness patterns surrounding the human world. It's like the entire solar system is aware of our presence and actively working against our intentions." "Consciousness doesn't affect physics," Vorthak said firmly. "Matter and energy obey universal laws. Living things can't change how the universe works just by thinking about it." But even as he spoke, Vorthak remembered ancient texts from the predecessor ruins. References to consciousness as a fundamental force of the universe equal to gravity or electromagnetism. The predecessors had claimed that thought itself could reshape reality when applied correctly. "Sir," Krenth said quietly, "what if the humans have learned what the predecessors knew? What if they've discovered how to use consciousness as a tool?" Vorthak's scales darkened with anger. "Then they are exactly the threat we believed them to be. Prepare the void weapon." "Primecast," Krenth protested. "If consciousness can affect reality at the quantum level, the void weapon might not work either. And if it does work, the gravitational disruption could destroy neighboring star systems. I would rather risk damaging a few systems than allow another great war," Vorthak said. "The humans have clearly completed the catalyst mutation. If we don't stop them now, they will spread their abilities to other species. The galaxy will become chaos." Deep in the command ship's core, technicians prepared humanity's ultimate weapon, The void device was a sphere of crystallized space-time that could unravel the fundamental structure of reality in a targeted area. It didn't just destroy matter and energy, it made existence itself impossible in the affected region. But before Vorthak could give the order to fire, something extraordinary happened. A figure appeared on the main screen of every ship in the fleet simultaneously. She looked human, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair. She wore simple clothes that seemed to shift and flow like liquid light, but she was clearly not broadcasting from any physical location. She appeared to be standing directly in the command centers of 300 ships at once. "Greetings," she said in a voice that somehow spoke to each species in their own language. "I am Admiral Choi Sulgi, speaking for the transformed consciousness of humanity. We know why you have come, and we understand your fear." Vorthak stood slowly from his command chair. "You are the leader of the humans?" "I am one voice among many," Admiral Choi replied. "We no longer think in terms of leaders and followers. We are a collective consciousness that maintains individual identity while sharing common purpose." "You have developed the catalyst mutation," Vorthak accused. "You threaten the stability of the galaxy, just like the predecessors did." Admiral Choi smiled sadly. "We understand why you believe that. Your species suffered greatly during the Great War. You made a noble sacrifice to protect younger civilizations from the chaos that unchecked evolution can create. Then you understand why you must be destroyed. We understand why you believe we must be destroyed," she corrected gently. "But your understanding of the predecessors was incomplete. They were not destroyed in the Great War. They transcended physical reality because they were afraid of what they had become. They left the galaxy rather than learn to control their new abilities." Krenth leaned forward in his chair. "What do you mean?" "The predecessors evolved beyond physical matter, but they never learned to work with the universe. They saw reality as something to be conquered and reshaped according to their will. When they realized their power could destroy everything they valued, they fled into higher dimensions rather than face the responsibility of their abilities." Admiral Choi's image gestured, and the screens around her showed pictures of ancient ruins throughout the galaxy, worlds that had been abandoned during the Great War, left empty when the predecessors vanished. "Humanity chose a different path," she continued. "We didn't try to transcend reality. We learned to become partners with it. We evolved not beyond consciousness, but into fuller consciousness. We developed abilities that work with the natural laws of the universe instead of trying to override them." Vorthak's tail lashed with agitation. "Words. You speak pretty words, but you still possess the power to remake matter with thought. You can still spread your mutation to other species. You are still a threat." "Are we?" Admiral Choi asked. "Your fleet has been attacking Earth for 15 minutes with weapons that can destroy solar systems. Has anyone been hurt? Has any property been damaged? Have we retaliated against you in any way?" Around the fleet, alien commanders checked their damage reports. No human weapons had fired at them. No defensive systems had targeted their ships. Earth hadn't even raised energy shields. The planet had simply made their weapons ineffective without causing any harm to the attackers. "We could have destroyed your fleet the moment you entered our solar system," Admiral Choi said. "We could have turned your own weapons against you. We could have reprogrammed your computers or taken control of your life support systems. Instead, we chose to demonstrate that violence is not necessary." "You neutralized our weapons," Vorthak said. "That is an act of war." "We convinced your weapons that harming us was not in their best interest," Admiral Choi corrected. "Just as a parent might convince a child not to touch a hot stove. We didn't destroy anything or hurt anyone. We simply made it impossible for violence to occur." Second Cast Krenth studied his readings carefully. "Prime Cast, she's telling the truth. Our weapons are still functional. They would work normally against any other target. Something has just made them uninterested in harming the humans." "That's impossible," Vorthak insisted, but his voice carried less certainty than before. Admiral Choi's expression grew more serious. "Your species and your allies have spent millions of years believing that evolution is a zero-sum game. That advanced consciousness must inevitably lead to domination and destruction. But consciousness is not a weapon. Vorthak Primecast. It's a tool for creation and cooperation. The screens around her changed to show images of Earth's transformation over the past 50 years. Cities that had been rebuilt underground, but not as hiding places, as gardens. Vast chambers filled with growing things, where humans lived in harmony with engineered ecosystems that existed partially in normal space and partially in higher dimensions. We didn't abandon the physical universe, Admiral Choi explained. We learned to heal it. Every world that your species purified over the past million years, we can restore them. Every extinct species you eliminated to prevent galactic chaos, we can bring them back. The power you fear in us is not the power to destroy, but the power to create. Vorthak stared at the images on his screen. Dead worlds he had sterilized decades ago were shown as they could be, green and alive, with impossible ecosystems that seem to thrive in environments where life should be impossible. You're saying you can reverse what we've done? Krenth asked, his voice filled with something that might have been hope. We're saying we can heal the scars that fear has left on the galaxy, Admiral Choi replied. The hegemony was created to prevent another great war, but prevention through destruction has created its own kind of war, a cold war against evolution itself. She gestured again, and the screens showed the 7 species of the hegemony as they had been before joining the alliance. The Vorthak had been explorers and philosophers. The crystalline had been artists who sang reality into new forms. The melody had been poets whose music could make planets bloom. Each species had given up their creative nature to become warriors. The silence that followed Admiral Choi Sulgi's words stretched across 300 ships like a held breath. In the command center of the Death of Worlds, Vorthak Primecast stood motionless, his ancient mind processing possibilities that had never existed before. Second Cast Krenth was the first to speak. Admiral Choi, you say you can restore dead worlds. How is this possible? The human woman's image smiled, and suddenly she was joined by others. Dr. Lee Gai-young appeared beside her, but she looked strange, sometimes solid, sometimes like she was made of flowing energy. Behind them came more figures, humans who existed in ways that challenged the hegemony's understanding of life itself. May I demonstrate? Admiral Choi asked. Without waiting for an answer, she gestured toward empty space near the fleet. Reality seemed to fold in on itself, and suddenly a small planet appeared, where nothing had existed moments before. It was gray and lifeless, its surface scarred by ancient weapons. This is Kepler-7, Dr. Lee Gai-young said, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in dimensions beyond normal sound. Your fleet destroyed it 400 years ago. The native species was developing too quickly, showing signs of the mutation you feared. Vorthak remembered the world. The beings there had been plant-like creatures who could change their chemistry to survive in any environment. They had been beautiful and peaceful, but they were evolving too fast. The hegemony had ended them before they could become dangerous. Watch, Admiral Choi said softly. The humans around her began to glow with soft light that seemed to come from within. They reached out toward the dead planet with hands that stretched across space without moving. Where their consciousness touched, the lifeless world changes began. The gray soil turned brown, then black with rich earth. Water bubbled up from deep springs. The atmosphere thickened and cleared. Green shoots pushed through the ground, growing into plants that swayed in a wind that carried the scent of flowers across impossible distances. But this was only the beginning. As the humans continued their work, shapes began to form in the new forests, creatures that moved with grace and purpose. The native species of Kepler-7 returned from extinction not as copies but as their original selves, somehow preserved in the quantum patterns that the humans could read like ancient books. Impossible, General Bloompetal whispered over the fleet communications. We destroyed them completely. There was nothing left to restore. Consciousness leaves patterns in the fabric of space-time, Admiral Choi explained. Every thought, every dream, every moment of existence creates ripples in reality. Most species don't know how to read these patterns, but we learned. We can see the stories that space itself remembers. The restored planet now bloomed with life that was somehow more vibrant than the original. The plant beings moved through forests that existed partially in normal space and partially in higher dimensions. They were what they had been before, but also what they had been meant to become if fear hadn't ended their journey. They're still the same species, Krenth observed, studying his sensors. But they're also different, more than they were before. Evolution doesn't have to be chaos, Dr. Li Gayung said. When consciousness guides change instead of fighting it, growth becomes harmony. These beings will continue to evolve, but now they understand the responsibility that comes with advanced abilities. Captain Whistlesong of the Melody spoke up, his musical voice filled with wonder. Their songs, I can hear them across space. They're singing reality into new forms, but gently, like a lullaby that helps the universe sleep peacefully. Admiral Choi nodded. They learned in moments what took humanity 50 years to understand. When consciousness evolves in partnership with wisdom, it creates beauty instead of destruction. Aboard the Seongsan, Captain Lee Taeho watched the restoration of Kepler 7 with tears streaming down his face. How many worlds can you restore? He asked. All of them, Admiral Choi replied simply. Every world the hegemony has sterilized over the past million years. Every species that was eliminated before it could fulfill its potential. The galaxy has been wounded by fear for too long. It's time for healing. But Vorthak Primecast was not yet convinced. What about the Great War? What happens when every species develops advanced consciousness? How do you prevent the chaos that destroyed civilization before? By learning from the predecessor's mistake, Admiral Choi said. They tried to force evolution on others without teaching wisdom first. They gave power without responsibility. They created change without creating understanding. The space around the restored planet began to shimmer and new images formed. Scenes from Earth's transformation over the past 50 years. Humans learning to expand their consciousness while remaining grounded in compassion. Children born after the change growing up with abilities that would have seemed magical, but also with deep understanding of how to use those abilities responsibly. We don't spread our abilities like a virus, Dr. Lee Gayung explained. We share them like teachers, only with those who are ready, only with those who understand that power must serve wisdom, not the other way around. Private Nam Dongyuk appeared on the communications screen, speaking directly to the alien fleet. I was born after humanity changed. I can exist in 17 locations at once, manipulate matter with thought, and communicate instantly across galactic distances. But the first thing I learned was that these abilities are tools for helping others, not for controlling them. And if someone misuses these abilities? Vorthak asked. Then the collective consciousness of all awakened beings works to guide them back to wisdom, Admiral Choi replied. We don't destroy those who make mistakes. We help them learn from those mistakes. The universe itself becomes a teacher when enough consciousness chooses cooperation over conflict. The alien fleet remained motionless in space, their weapons still useless, their commanders wrestling with concepts that challenged everything they had believed for millions of years. Then Second Cast Krenth made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Primecast, he said, I request permission to accept the human's offer. Vorthak turned to stare at his subordinate. You would risk becoming like the predecessors? I would risk becoming what the predecessors should have been, Krenth replied. Look at what they've shown us. A dead world restored to life. Extinct beings given new chances to grow. Power used for creation instead of destruction. Maybe we've been wrong about the nature of evolution. Around the fleet, other voices began to speak up. Admiral Thex of the Crystalline said, My people were once artists. We sang new forms of matter into existence. We gave that up to become warriors. Perhaps it's time to remember what we were meant to be. Captain Whistlesong added his musical voice. The melody believed that all existence is a song. Maybe it's time to learn new harmonies instead of just preventing discordant notes. Even General Bloompetal, ancient and slow to change, spoke thoughtfully. The plant kingdom has always grown toward the light. Perhaps consciousness is simply another form of light we can grow toward. Vorthak looked around at his allies, seeing doubt and hope warring in their expressions. For 3 million years, the hegemony had protected the galaxy through vigilance and controlled violence. They had prevented catastrophic change by stopping all change. But at what cost? What guarantee do we have? He asked Admiral Choi. How do we know this won't lead to the same chaos the predecessors created? You don't, she said honestly. There are no guarantees in evolution. But there is a choice. You can continue hunting consciousness until the galaxy becomes a graveyard of stunted potential, or you can help nurture consciousness until the galaxy becomes a garden of infinite possibilities. The restored planet of Kepler-7 continued to bloom in space before them, its restored inhabitants singing songs that painted aurora across their sky. It was beautiful in ways that none of the alien species had seen since they became warriors against change. Vorthak Primecast closed his eyes and thought of all the worlds his fleet had sterilized. All the species they had eliminated. All the potential they had destroyed in the name of preventing chaos. Had they really been protecting the galaxy, or had they been preventing it from becoming what it was meant to be? If we agree to this, he said slowly, what happens to the hegemony? What happens to our purpose? Your purpose evolves, Admiral Choi replied. Instead of preventing dangerous change, you help guide positive change. Instead of being the galaxy's immune system, you become its teachers. Instead of warriors against evolution, you become shepherds of consciousness. For a long moment, Vorthak stood silent. Then he reached for his communication controls and activated a fleet-wide channel. All ships, he said, his voice carrying, across 300 vessels. Stand down from attack positions. We are beginning a new kind of mission. On Earth, Colonel Bae Hyunwoo smiled as he watched alien weapons systems power down. On the Seongsan, Kim Ji-won pressed her hand against the viewing screen and whispered a thank you to the home she had never seen but had always carried in her heart. And in the restored forests of Kepler-7, plant beings looked up at the stars and sang songs of welcome to the galaxy they were about to help transform. The hunt was over. The gardening had begun. Months later, Captain Lee Tae-ho walked through New Seoul, a city that existed both underground and in